Chairman, thank you, Senator Director Coates and Admiral Rogers, for your testimony. And with all due respect to my colleague from Virginia, I think you have cleared up substantially your direct testimony that you have never been pressured by anyone, including the President of the United States, to do something illegal, immoral, or anything else. Thank you for that. Let's go back to Section 702, which is what this hearing was supposed to be all about. It's becoming patently obvious, I think, that those of us that work in the intelligence community, that we're in a different position than Europe is. Europe is, their risks are obviously very high, and they're suffering these attacks on a very regular basis and becoming more regular. So let's talk about our collection efforts versus the European collection efforts, and particularly as it relates to Section 702. And obviously, we hear in the media frequently about spats between us and the Europeans regarding intelligence matters, but we all know that there is a robust communication and cooperation between our European friends and ourselves. So I want to talk about it I want to talk about 702 in that respect. Why don't we start, Director Coates, with you, and then I'll throw it up for anybody else that wants to comment on this. How important is 702, the continuation of Section 702 and its related parts, to doing what we have been doing as far as helping the Europeans and the Europeans helping us, and doing the things that we're doing here in America to see that we don't have the kind of situations that have been recently happening in Europe. Director Coates, start with you.
Well, having just returned a few weeks ago from major capitals in Europe and discussing this very issue with my counterparts throughout the intelligence communities of these various countries, they voluntarily, before I could even ask the question, expressed extreme gratitude for the ability for the information we have been able to share with them relative to threats. Numerous threats have been avoided on the basis of collection that we have received through 702 authorities and our notification of them of these impending threats, and they have been deterred or intercepted. Unfortunately, what has happened just recently, particularly in England, shows that regardless of how good we are, there are bad actors out there that have bypassed the more concentrated large attack efforts and taken it either through inspiration or direction from ISIS or other terrorist groups, have chosen to take violent action against citizens of those countries. The purpose of the trip was to ensure them that we would continue to work and share together. Their collection activities, capabilities, in many cases are good, but in some cases lack the ability that we have. And so this ability to share information with them that helps keep their people safe also is highly valued by them. But I don't think we should take for granted that just because Europe has been the recent target of these attacks, that the United States is safe from that. We know through intelligence that there's plotting going on, and we know that there's lone wolf issues and individuals that are taking instructions from ISIS through social media, or that for whatever reason are copycatting what is happening. And so that threat exists here also. And let me lastly say that the nations I've talked to, many of which have been extremely concerned about violating privacy rights, have initiated new procedures and legislation and mandates relative to giving the intelligence agencies better collection because they think they need it to protect their citizens.
Thank you very much. In just a few seconds that I've got left, Mr. Rosenstein, could you tell me, please, we get a lot of pushback from the privacy people. And we've now heard testimony that there's been no intentional violation over the 10 years. Could you tell the American people what's in store for someone who these guys catch intentionally misusing 702, since you're the highest ranking member of the Department of Justice here?
Yes, Senator. Well, I can assure you, Senator, that in the Department of Justice, we treat with great seriousness any allegations of violations regarding classified information. So if there were a credible allegation that someone had willfully violated Section 702 in a way that was in violation of a criminal law, we would investigate that case, and if prosecution were justified, we would prosecute it. I know Director McCabe shares with me that commitment. We recognize that we have an obligation to the American people to make sure that these authorities are used appropriately and responsibly, that we comply with the Constitution and the laws and the procedures, and we're committed to devote whatever resources are required to make sure that if there are willful violations, people are held accountable for them.
And this is your commitment and the Department of Justice's commitment to the American people?
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenstein. Thank you, Mr.